Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a phenomenal woman that I had the pleasure of recently connecting with online. Actually found out that we're originally from the same hometown of Chicago, literally living a couple of blocks away from each other, if you can believe that. God makes no mistakes. I don't think that was by accident. We were meant to connect. And of course, I extended the opportunity for her to be on the podcast, and she so graciously has accepted to do so. She is an entrepreneur, but most importantly, she is a woman of God who, again, has taken time out of a very busy schedule to share a little bit about her story, her journey, with the hopes of encouraging, inspiring, and uplifting, particularly as it relates to dealing with adversity and how to face those challenges in life as we all find ourselves up against storms every now and then throughout the course of life. So with that said, it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you my special guest this evening, Miss Karen Morris. Karen, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate the offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So before we jump into our segments for this evening, I do want to give you an opportunity to give a general introduction about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give our audience a little bit of taste of who is Karen Morris.
Okay. Well, like you said, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. And when I was about 33 years old, I moved to Sacramento, California, me and my three kids, and was there for 20 years. And I enjoyed it. I worked for the court for almost 20 years, and it was where I've always wanted to be, right? I've always, since I was a kid, when I was in grammar school, I used to tell my friends that I had a twin sister that lived in Sacramento because that's where my heart was. I really wanted to be in Sacramento. But I'm a mother of three adult children, married, adult children. I don't have any grandkids right now, but that's okay. God know what he's doing. And I am the caregiver for both of my parents. I am also the owner of a Christian bookstore here in Richmond, Kentucky. I left California and now I ended up in Richmond, Kentucky. So, yeah, that's who I am. I mean, I love God. I love what I do. The bookstore is one of the best jobs I've ever had before in my life. And I get to talk about God all day, every day. So, talk about the good things he's done and talk about the things that I'm still kind of trying to figure out why he hasn't answered the prayers yet. But yeah, I am trying to live my best almost senior citizen life that I can.
Awesome, awesome. I appreciate you sharing a little bit of your beginnings here, and we're gonna delve in that a little bit further. But again, it's always good to connect with somebody that's, like I said, from back home, and like I said, who knew,
Who knew?
that we were so close, but and we would cross state lines and be in completely different opposite ends of the country and connect this way. So that's pretty
Yeah,
awesome. So.
yeah.
All right, all right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and jump into this thing and learn a little bit more about your story. And I want to kind of go back to where you started off with, because I'm a firm believer that when we talk about our sharing our stories and our journeys in life, we would be remiss if we didn't go back to the beginnings, to where it all starts. And so I'd like to delve into that a little bit more with you by asking you the question, if you would, of kind of take us back, south side of Chicago. I mean, I know the neighborhood well, but our listeners may not necessarily know it as well as we do. Kind
Mhm.
of share with us, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that come to mind, as well as if there's any challenges that may come to mind as well that you'd like to share, kind of giving us that foundational basis of where your story begins.
Well, when I was growing up, I grew up in the 70s. And so I was born in 65. So, I grew up in the 70s. And in the 70s, they still had what you called middle class families, right? So our middle class family lived on the south side of Chicago. And I just, I have so many fond memories of being a kid. Like, we used to play softball in the middle of the street. We used to be able to ride our bikes through the neighborhood, and we would play dodgeball and um, kickball, and we would play hide and go seek, and just all kinds of good stuff. And we even learned how to turn the fire hydrant on and then play in the water. We had what do you call it? Block parties where actual families would come out, bring food and drink and have fun and play music, and the kids would just run crazy, have bounce houses, and the fire engines would be there to let us, run all around, climb up and down on the fire engines and all of that kind of stuff. So it was nothing like it is now. It was really, I cannot say that it was I can't say that it was a bad childhood. I mean, of course, being in a middle class family meant, well, for the ones that were in our neighborhood most of the time anyway, that meant that you were pretty much a latchkey kid. So,
Hmm.
you go to school and you come home, by yourself, and you unlock that door and you get in and you lock that door back and you make sure that you do your homework and get the house clean and all that kind of stuff before the parents get home. So it was the 70s for us,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
kids.
Wow, wow. Just hearing you share that, of course, and again, knowing the actual neighborhood itself, all of those things trigger, so many memories. Like you said, especially like the fire hydrants and the block parties and all of that good stuff, and just kids being kids. I mean, we,
Yeah.
as you shared, it was nothing like what it is today, where you almost got to force kids to go outside and play, and as well as just even being worried about the dangers of the streets. We didn't, I mean, yeah, there were things in your neighborhood that you had to be worried about. I mean, everybody
Yeah.
wasn't, always doing the right things. We
Right,
had,
right.
there were gangs in the neighborhood. There were,
Hmm.
there were, bad kids or whatever, trouble that you could get into. But generally
Bullies.
speaking, yes, but generally speaking, you were able to comfortably be able to kind of go outside and enjoy life and just be a kid. And as you said, it was kind of, the whole latchkey, of course, I'm sure you remember the street lights,
Yeah.
getting in by the time the street lights come on and all that good stuff. And then, and I've had the pleasure of having some guests on the show that are from the neighborhood. And, and a lot of times I'll reflect back even to, and I'm sure you recall this, if you think about like how, the area of 89th and Loomis used to be, where you had all of these businesses, and many
Hmm.
of them were owned by people who looked like us,
Yeah, yeah,
and we didn't really have an appreciation or understanding of the power of that now. And you think about,
yeah,
you fast forward to today's times, where you would pay premium dollars to live in a neighborhood like that. And
yeah,
that's an
yeah.
exclusive thing, but that was regular stuff for us with
Yep.
many of our parents, for those, whether you had a single parent from a single parent household or you had both parents, many of them owned businesses and the whole
Hmm.
entrepreneurial spirit. So,
And not
you know,
only that, those business owners knew who you were. So you
exactly.
weren't going to be doing something,
Right.
that you weren't supposed to be doing. So,
Hmm. And it's so funny that you even say that, because like I think back to my mom. My mom, for many years, was a smoker.
hmm.
And even my grandmother was for a time. And, you think back, and I grew up in the 70s as well, so I can still remember, as I'm sure you do, where you would go to the liquor store with a note,
With a
or
note,
or maybe because the person who ran it knew your parent, and
knew
you'd be
your
like, I'm here for
parent.
some cigarettes, and so they
Yeah.
trusted to like sell you cigarettes as a minor, knowing that you were getting it for your mother, your father to take
Yeah.
home. So it's just so crazy when you think about that. But again, those are the good times and the fun moments that sort of make up, who we are as individuals. And even as I think, fast forwarding to today, you being an entrepreneur running your own Christian bookstore, it
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me to the extent when I think to where you came from, you
Yeah,
know that
yeah,
that was those seeds were already being planted into you early on in life, whether you realize it or not. It was setting you up for the ultimate purpose of what
yeah,
you would, what you would be doing later on. So that's why I love having these conversations about the beginnings, because I don't believe that, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, those experiences that we have, I don't believe that they're by accident, but they are purposeful. They are intended. They are a preview of what lies
hmm,
ahead for us. And so, yeah, so it's just really refreshing, and
yeah,
puts a smile on my face to just think back to those days. Because, like you said, yeah, many of us, maybe, we had times where we didn't have money or we didn't have a lot, but it didn't even feel that way because of the
yeah.
family
And you could
dynamic.
share. It's so funny because back then, if you had 25 cents,
Hmm.
you could go to the store and you could get 25 cent worth of penny candy, and
Hmm.
you could share it with at least four friends.
Right, right. And we knew even a couple of people back in the day that when you talked about going to the candy store, it didn't always necessarily mean a storefront. You had people who ran candy stores out of their
Out of their
homes.
homes.
You're going
Yeah,
down in the basement to the candy lady or
yeah,
whatever, or chasing down the ice cream man,
yeah, yeah.
to get something. So yeah, just all of those memories just
Hmm.
bring back thoughts of good times. And when you think about your own kids, and you're like, man, they don't even have a clue what they missed out
Mm-mm.
on and the fun that we used to have back then. And
Yeah.
that just was the way of life. So I
Hmm.
appreciate you sharing that. So Karen, as you have this awesome childhood, living life, just experiencing different things. But of course, in the midst of our experiences, will come some storms.
Hmm.
And I think as we get older, um, I think there's a tendency for us to get more and more exposed to these storms. And again, it's a part of life. It's everybody's going to go through that. But
Hmm.
every now and then, when we start talking about the storms of life, every now and then we get hit with storms that are a little bit more intense, than just the traditional day to day challenges that we might have. So much so that sometimes we get hit with some storms that when we're up against those moments and times, we question ourselves like, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to ever overcome this? Even if you are somebody who's come up in a household where God was a priority in your home and you were a believer, even then sometimes you had some fears and some worries like, God, how you gonna get us out of this? What are we
Hmm.
gonna do about this situation? So, with that said, if you would share with us a time when you found yourself in life facing a challenging situation that it was so challenging that you had doubts as to how you're going to overcome it, how you're going to get through it, how you're going to make a way. This wasn't a situation that you could throw some money at it. It wasn't a situation where you could make a phone call and make it go away. You were facing this thing head on, and you might have been clueless as to like, or again, lacking answers on how am I gonna work through this. So if you would kind of share with us a moment that you experienced like that, kind of walk us through what that scenario was like for you, and what was ultimately the turning point where you saw, some light at the end of the tunnel and coming up out of that situation.
Well, I'm just gonna tell you, I felt as if I had a pretty good um, childhood. It wasn't perfect, right? Um, but the older I got, the more, even though I felt it sometimes when I was younger, but the older I got, I felt as if I was not being seen, within the family. And I felt as if I wasn't being heard. And so, when you get to those types of points, you um do like what they say, looking for love in all the wrong places, right? And so I had I think one of the things that saved me is, it's not a long story, but I think one of the things that has saved me was the fact that my brother had started going to church.
Mm.
And my mom used to send us to church on Sundays down the street to Cross Temple on 91st and Bishop. And so we would go down there, but there was a time that my brother, my older brother, he had started going to church, of course, because the girls were there. So he, and he could sing, really well. And so he decided to go to church and join church and get in the choir and all that kind of stuff. So him going to church actually, I guess, piqued my mom's I don't want to say curiosity, because she was raised in church. Her mother, I mean, she was in church. They were in church every day, morning, noon, and night. It seems like, right? Let them tell it. But I guess it must have struck a chord in my mom, to get back in church. And with her doing that, she got, me and my sister. It was three of us, my sister and my brother. And so my mom got, the girls, me and my sister together, and she would, start taking us to church. Well, back to feeling lonely, unseen, not appreciated, and things like that. I used to pray all the time. I got in a lot of trouble, um, cutting school, smoking weed, and things like that, right? But the thing that really got me was that I was praying and asking God, Lord, just send me someone that loves me for me, and, all that kind of stuff. I want them to love me for me. I want someone that I can love, and
Hmm.
those are things that 15, 16, 17-year-old girls think, right? And so with that, I met a boy, and he said the same thing to me that I said to God.
Mm.
And I just knew that that was it. I didn't have to go and inquire. I didn't feel like I needed to ask God for anything else. I just felt like he said the same thing that I said to you, so it must be true. Well, we ended up getting married at 19,
Mm.
and we were married for 12 years. We got divorced. The divorce was final 2 weeks before our 12th anniversary.
Mm.
I had never felt more lonely before in my life while I was married. It was the most, he was so attentive in everything before we got married. But then when we got married, things changed. And I have never, there was nothing, how can I say, it was nothing like, I never got beat up or anything like that, right? But
Hmm.
there was a lot of verbal abuse. There was a lot of mental abuse. There was a lot of pushing and tugging and things like that. And I just wanted to die.
Mm.
I just wanted to die. I had 3 kids. I had my first child at 20, the second child at 21, and 2, 3, 4, and I think I had my baby girl at 24 or 25. And here I am with someone that, and let me let you understand this. I wasn't innocent in the whole thing, because my mouth was probably just as fiery as his.
Hmm.
But my goal was to fix the relationship. And it seemed like his was to break the relationship. And so, I mean, for at least 8 of the 12 years that we were married, um, my name was Stupid B, and
Mm.
it's like, you know, what's your name? Oh, my name is Stupid B. You know what I mean? That's how often, and I would get angry. Don't be calling me that, and we would just, go back and forth, back and forth. But the thing that got me, I believe, the thing that got me out was I was tired. I had gotten to the point I was just tired. And I had asked God, I had gone to pastors, I had gone to church. I mean, I was doing, cause I was searching. I was like, well, I leave one place, and then I end up in another place. This, just as hard,
Mhm.
And so I'm like, I need help. What do I do? I need help. And so the one pastor told me, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but your husband has a lustful spirit, and that is not going to change. It does not matter what you do, it's not going to change. And I was like, okay. But I still tried. I
Mhm.
still tried. And then one day I was with my friend, and we were in the car going to do something, and she dropped me back off at the house. And before I got out of the car, I said, I just don't understand. Of course, we were bashing each other's husbands, and you know how we do that. And so I was getting out of the car, and I said, I just don't understand. I don't understand. Father, why? Why does this keep happening every year, the same time of the year, the same thing? And I slammed her door. And before I took two steps, I heard, I heard, heard the Spirit say, because you keep doing the same thing over and
Mm.
over again. And I was like, wow. And I just went and I was like, I keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I think it had to be a couple of months later. Some things had happened. And so I'm up at 5 o'clock no, it had to be about 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm laying in an empty bed because the husband had gone out the night before, and it's like 4, almost 5 in the morning. And so I'm laying there. I said, you know, I think I'm going to get up. It was going to be Sunday. So I think I'm going to get up and I'm going to cook breakfast, start dinner. I'm going to clean the house. And then I think I'm going to just go for a walk or something. And I got up, got myself cleaned up, went in the kitchen and started preparing breakfast and things like that. The sun was coming up and he was coming through the door. And he came in and grabbed me and made this really rude gesture type thing, come and give me some, and I was
Mhm.
like, no, you are no longer privileged to that. He went in the room, went to bed. I'm in the kitchen cleaning. So then I go under the kitchen counter. I grab some, I hope this is not too long of a story.
No, you're fine.
Grab the carpet sprinkler stuff that you put on the carpet. And I started sprinkling it on the floor in the dining room. So our kitchen was off the dining room. Then there was a corridor. Then there was the living room. Okay. And then on the left side, there were my bedroom, the children's bedroom, then the bathroom was in between. I'm giving you that for a reason. So I go in the dining room and I start sprinkling the carpet fresh on the floor. And I hear this voice says, you're not going through this again. You're not going through this again. You're not going through this again. And I'm looking around and I'm like, what? And I was like, okay, my heart. I'm sure you've had one of those experiences where your heart just feels like it jumps right out of your chest and then back in. I could not believe that I was hearing this and nobody was there. So I
Mhm.
went to the door and I looked in my bedroom. He was knocked out snoring. I looked at the girls' room. Their door was closed. And of course no one was in the bathroom, right? So I was like, okay. I don't know what that was, but okay. So I walked through the corridor to the living room and started sprinkling the carpet fresh on there. And I heard it again. You're not going through this again. You're not going through this again. You're not going through this again. I ran through the dining room into the bathroom. And in the bathroom, we had a mirror on the shower. So when you're standing in the bathroom door, you're looking straight at the shower.
Mhm.
So I ran into the bathroom and it was like a scary movie. I promise you, I had never experienced anything like this before in my life. I ran into the bathroom and it was like, dun, dun, because I looked at the mirror in the over the tub, and then I turned and I looked at the mirror over the sink, and I was like, I'm not going through this again. And I just took the bar of soap. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. I took the bar of soap and I started washing my arms and my hands all the way up to my shoulders, just washing. I'm not going through this again. I'm not going through this again. I'm not going through this again. And 2 weeks after that, I filed for divorce. And when I filed for divorce, he told me, you will never find another man to treat you the way I did. And I was like, hallelujah. You are not going to find another man to take care of no 3 kids. There's no man that's going to want you with no 3 kids. Okay. That was the hardest thing that I could have ever done, was to leave someone that I felt like I really, really loved, right? But that's how I ended up in California, because God made a way. Really and truly, He did. He made a way for me. A year later, I could not find an apartment in Chicago. I was living with my parents. I could not find like a high paying job like I wanted to. None of that. I tried. I really tried. Couldn't find anything. The Lord blessed me. He never showed up to court. He only showed up for the divorce. He didn't show up when I said I wanted to take the kids to California. He didn't show up. So the judge said, he didn't show up twice. The judge said, well, you go ahead and you make a life for your kids. I said, yes, sir, I will. And we got there September 3rd. And I think I worked like 2 weeks before God blessed me with let me take that back. September, October, November, December. December, I worked 3 months. And then in January, God blessed me with a job at the Superior Court. And it was nothing but God. It was nothing. We found a church. We found, favor in God from every area. I was able to buy me another house because he was like, you ain't taking my house. I was like, you can have it. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. And the reason that I tell you that story is because all through that marriage, I felt this this big. Now, when I was in my family, maybe I felt about this big, but when I was in that marriage, I felt this big. A friend of mine told me, I have never seen you look like this before in your life. He says, all you wear are sweats. Now, I worked. I did. I worked all through our marriage. I worked because he wanted to give me $50 a week. And I have 3 kids. And that's all he wanted to give me was $50 a week. And I was like, no. And I fought tooth and nail all the time through that marriage, all the time. But when I got to California, God showed me so much stuff. He showed me so much. I grew up
Hmm.
and became a woman in California. I learned how to take care of my kids on my own. I learned how to be a provider on my own. I learned how to do things that I never would have thought that I would do on my own. I learned how to do those things. People say when people see single women or single parents, single mothers, they oftentimes say, well, you need a man. I'm not negating that a man is necessary in a relationship. I am not negating that. But what I am saying is that you have to know who you are first before you can incorporate somebody else into your life or build a relationship with someone else.
Wow. Wow.
That I say I overcame that because I did. And about 5 or 6 years ago, he apologized to me, and I forgave him.
Mhm.
I did. He apologized to me the best way he knew how to apologize, right? Because you can't give what you don't have, right? So I accepted his apology the way he gave it. It wasn't the way I wanted it, right? But I accepted it the way he gave it because that's what he had to give. Now, are we best of friends? No. We do communicate because we do have children, but yeah. And I probably shouldn't have told that story.
Actually, you probably should have told that story. You and I had that conversation at the very beginning. You share as
Yeah.
God led you to share, and that's exactly what you did. And so I want to first start off by saying I appreciate your transparency in sharing that. You know, there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who are in marriages right now and are, as you stated, feeling lonely, and something that's supposed to be a unifying moment between a man and a woman. That's a There's no feeling like that to feel like you're by yourself when physically there's somebody right there with you. How is that possible,
Right.
especially within the confines of a marriage? But the truth is that those type of things unfortunately happen, and there's
Mhm.
a variety of different reasons. I mean, and they're not going to always be all inclusive, but I think usually one of the common denominators in that, the question that immediately comes to mind is, where was God in the marriage from the
Right.
beginning? You
Exactly.
know, you spoke about, before leading up to getting married, you were struggling with this whole idea of feeling like I'm not seen, I'm not heard, and if only I could meet somebody that would see me and hear me and
Mhm.
and love me and appreciate me. And again, many of us, men and women, have struggles with that, and they're wanting to have that special someone that feels that way, that's willing to reciprocate in that way with us. But the reality is that it doesn't matter how fine they are, what their background is or whatever. Particularly when you're entering into a relationship, specifically a marriage,
Mhm.
that's God created that. So it doesn't really make sense for us to think that we can step into a marriage, something that God created, and then leave him out of it, leave him out of the
Right.
mix of it.
Mhm.
So then now we're faced to struggle with and deal with our own shortcomings and and setbacks, if you will. So, here you had in your situation, he's dealing with all his stuff and he's taking it out on you. You're dealing with all your stuff, and you both are going back and forth, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing. There's no movement in it, and you
Right.
wonder. And being a woman of faith as you were, you sit back wondering, like, God, why are you letting me go through this? Don't you see I'm hurting, I'm suffering, I'm lonely. And when God allows us to go through storms like this, he's not allowing you to go through it because he's trying to hurt you, he's trying to punish you. He had to have you go through it so you can see what the problem was. And like you said, ultimately, literally, spirit speaks to you and says, basically, no more. This is
Mm-hmm.
it. We're
Mm-hmm.
done. It's like, I let you go through this. I had to let you get to almost a breaking point
Yeah.
in order for you to experience what was going to ultimately be the breakthrough,
Yeah.
where you were going to be able to come up out of that. And as you spoke of multiple times as you were sharing your story, God began to lay out the plan. This is how you getting ready to get up out of this. This is how I'm getting ready to open up, you know, open up things for you, open up those pathways that you probably had no idea. As you said, I didn't know how I was going to do that because I'm trying to find work. I can't find work. I'm trying to find a place to stay. I can't find a place to stay. It's looking hopeless. It's looking like there's no way out. But you and I both know, as you testified and sharing your story, when you are in alignment with God, you're in relationship with Him. He will make ways for you. He will make those pathways, because why? He loves us unconditionally. Even when we mess up, even when we
Mm-hmm.
don't make smart decisions, he's
Mm-hmm.
never left you. You feeling alone, you were never alone.
Yeah.
He was always there. He just wanted you to see and understand that you had value, that you had
Mm-hmm.
worth, that you were not an accident, you were not a mistake, you were not.
Yeah.
This was not the big picture of what life was supposed to be for you. But again, sometimes God has to allow us to go through those storms, in order for the lights to come on, for that, to have that reality moment, like, okay, what am I doing here? This doesn't this you had to. I used to say, I can remember specifically being in a relationship, in my younger years, and my stepdad at the time. I'm talking to him and I'm frustrated about what's going on with that relationship. And I'm like, I'm sick of this. I'm tired of this. I'm dealing with this and that. And I remember him specifically saying to me, "You're not tired." He said, "You ain't tired yet." Because to what your point was when you talked about hearing that voice saying, the reason why
Because you keep
you,
doing the
you keep doing
same.
the same thing. He was like, so it was the same message that he was telling me,
Mm-hmm.
you ain't tired.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I'm feeling like, you ain't really being sensitive to what I'm feeling, and,
Right.
and really all I was doing was having a little pity party for myself. I want somebody to feel
Mm-hmm.
sorry for me. Well, if you want some change to happen, you got to help ignite
Change
that
it.
change. You got to change it up. As I'm sure you've heard, when they talk about what insanity means, is
Mm-hmm.
keep doing the same thing and expecting a different
Yep.
outcome. Well, who's the
Mm.
crazy one? Well,
Yep.
that doesn't take away from your partner, or in this case, your husband. He got his own issues, and yeah, he's doing what he's doing. But what about you?
What
What are
about you?
you doing?
Mhm.
You can't put all the blame one direction. This is a two
Yep.
way thing,
Yep.
So, I appreciate you walking through that, because I think, for anybody who has an opportunity to listen to the show, there are many, again, men and women who are in that very situation right now. And so, for my listeners, understand, there's at some point you got to kind of do some self-assessment. You got
Mm-hmm.
to, like, yeah, that this person might not be doing this, that, and the other. They don't come home, they don't give me no money. All that might be true, but
Mm-hmm.
where are you at on this? What are you doing to change the dynamic? Or are you just kind
Mm-hmm.
of going through these same motions, and again, expecting some type of different outcome to just magically arise? That's just not how life works. But one thing I can say, again, and I know you are a testament to this, when you are at your lowest, when it doesn't seem like that there's anybody around who cares, who's concerned, or anything of that nature, we serve a God who is. And
Yeah.
all he wants is for you to just reach out to him, lean into him, and say, I need help. Be
Mm-hmm.
there for me.
I
And guess
tell
what?
you, right before I filed for the divorce, I said that 2 weeks later I filed for divorce. So I was in our bedroom and I was making an entry. I used to journal all the time. And I was making an entry into my journal and I was saying, Lord, no matter what happens to me, please take care of my kids and don't let them stay with their dad. No matter what happens to me. And then I took a like
Mm.
deep breath, and like, I don't know if a light bulb came on. I just know that I just took this breath in, and things just seemed to start changing. And yeah, that's when
Mm.
I ended up filing the divorce, because I could not. And I went back and I read that last entry, and this is just so, I guess, weird or whatever. But I went back. I didn't read anything else in my journal, and I suggest that whenever you write things in your journal that are not healthy, when you're writing down like anger and things like that in your journal, things that you're trying to get out, you're trying to bring them out of yourself, I don't suggest you reread it.
Mm.
But I didn't read anything else because it's toxic, right? So that's why you don't go back and read it. So, but I didn't read anything else in my journal, but I read that last line, and it's stuck in my head. And I was like, God, I thank you for not letting me hurt myself and leaving my babies with him. And I burned that journal.
Mm.
I burned that journal.
Wow. Wow. That's powerful, and I appreciate you saying that about being mindful of the toxic and not to
Mm-hmm.
revisit that, whether it's something that you wrote down or
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a thought that you have in your head about something that's happened. I was just reflecting on that just recently about and I incorporated it in my prayer every day as like to stay clear of trying to replay stuff, especially
Mm-hmm.
stuff that God has already worked out for me. I done
Mm-hmm.
already prayed about it. I done already talked to him about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm saying that I'm trusting and believing that his promises are true and he's going to work that thing out, then why I keep going back to it and
Mm-hmm.
replaying it and
Mm-hmm.
rethinking it? And he's looking at me, didn't we already talk about this?
Mm-hmm.
Haven't I already proven to you over and over again that every time you bring something to me and you let me do what I do, it always works out?
Mm-hmm.
So why you keep going
Why you
back to
keep
that?
going
But
back? Yep.
why you keep going? But that's a trick of the enemy. Enemy
Mm-hmm.
wants you to replay those things. He wants you to stay stuck
Yeah.
in that toxic moment, that moment of darkness, that period of where you're starting to think less of yourself or don't see any way out, even though you've already been given the guarantee that it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna work. If he can get you pulled back into that and marinating on that, then it causes you to again to I guess refill yourself up with that toxic vibe, that energy, and all that. And that's exactly what you don't want. You
Right,
want that
because it
poison up out of
doubles.
you.
It
Yes.
doubles. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. So I totally respect how you said, you know what? I had to make sure that not only that I not go back to it, but I'm gonna get rid of this stuff altogether so I don't
Yep.
even get tempted to revisit that.
Yep.
And the one other thing that I wanted to point out really quick that you said when you spoke about the forgiveness, you talked about how years later he would come to you and apologize, and how it wasn't the way that you would have per se scripted it out for him to do, but you understood that he was only able to apologize as he was able to do so, and you took it for what it was. But I
Mm-hmm.
think based upon my understanding of forgiveness and the significance of that, I think we want to make sure that our listeners understand first and foremost, the forgiveness is always for you and not for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to move on wasn't just God stepping in and doing his thing and opening up pathways. You, whether you realize it or not, you had at some point to make a decision that, you know what, in spite of all of the mental and the emotional and everything else, the torment that I had to experience from this man, you at some point resolved within yourself that I'm gonna forgive this, so that it allowed you to be able to heal and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
You may have never been able to specifically say those words to him at that time, but you had to make that decision from within that in
Mm-hmm.
spite of all that he's done, I'm going to not only forgive him, but I'm gonna forgive myself
Mhm.
for for even thinking that I wasn't valuable, for even thinking that I was. It was the only way that God could begin to open that stuff up for you and pour into you, because you had to start to believe that you were deserving of it, that you were
Mhm.
worthy of it. So when he finally comes around and offers you whatever the watered down apology that that it might have been,
Mhm.
it was easy for you to accept it, not because it was the best scripted and the best way that he should have done it, but
Mhm.
because at this point I had already moved on.
Mhm.
Was it? I'm sure it was nice to hear for what it was, but and like you said, it also opened up a pathway, because you do have children,
Mhm.
for there to be some lines of communication. So there was some value in it, but as far as you, it wasn't a setback for you. If he would have never apologized, God had already been working that stuff out. It was just almost an added bonus.
Mhm.
That was, and again, his apologizing to you, that was for him to,
Right.
to, to deal with his stuff. It wasn't for you. I
Right.
was good. I was good.
Right.
So I just wanted to kind of point that out, because again, that's a lot of times for people who are struggling to move on after dealing with trauma of whatever types. Much of that block, that impasse, has to deal with the forgiveness.
Mhm.
They can't get past that. And they
Mhm.
feel like, sometimes you feel like if you forgive somebody, or if you accept forgiveness in your heart, that it means that you're condoning the behavior. You're not
Mhm.
condoning the behavior. You're not saying that what you did to me was good or right or appropriate. It wasn't. Calling me
Mhm.
out my name and I'm your wife. No, that wasn't.
Mhm.
No, that wasn't cool. But for
Mhm.
my healing, for my ability to move forward, I have to forgive, so that God can
Mhm.
begin to work in me and set me up for the blessings that He has lined up, the
Mhm.
pathways that He has lined up. So I just wanted to kind of to highlight that, because I think that's really important that we, make note of that. So
Mhm.
great stuff, great stuff. So Karen, I'm curious to know, and you've shared a little bit about this, but I'm curious to know that when you do find yourself facing adversity, I mean, obviously you shared some very major stuff, but we all know that all storms aren't going to be major and crazy like that.
Right.
Sometimes they're intense and big, and sometimes they're just day to day life stuff. But
Mhm.
nevertheless, I'm curious to know, what is it that you like to do when you do find yourself facing adversity? What is the process, the routine, the regimen, if you will, that works best for you? That, hey, I'm facing this challenge. These are the things, these are the steps that I like to take that helps me to process that thing in a healthy and an appropriate manner, so I can work my way through it and maintain my sanity in the process. What does that
So
process
let
for
me
you look like?
so let me tell you, because I love God, and I got saved when I was 13. So I say I've been building my relationship with God, since I was 13. It hasn't always been perfect, but I have been building my relationship. And so now, um, what I do when I have challenges, just like this, I had breast cancer before, right? And so, um, I didn't know the words to the song. All I knew, it's a Smokey Norfolk song, and all I knew was God is able. God is able. Right? God is
Hmm.
able, and He won't fail. Right?
Hmm.
I could sing a little bit, but I won't be singing. But I would sing that song every day, even going through the lumpectomy, going through the radiation. Even after that, I would sing that song all the time, just that part, all the time. And I still do that to this day, because God is able. He is able. And that is what I hold on to, that He is able. It does not matter what it looks like. It does not matter how it sounds. God is able. And I'm going to keep that. I, I don't care. The house burning down, or, the sky is falling, or what. God is able. God is able.
Hmm.
And I believe that. Whatever the situation, God is able.
Love that. Love that. And that is a sign of true spiritual growth. When you get
Yeah.
to the point where, yeah, this is a rough situation I'm up against. This is a challenge. This is a pain in my side, so to speak. But just embracing that whole mindset of God is able.
Yep.
That's your way of saying, look, I know it doesn't look right. It doesn't feel good. It's not the most convenient time for this, but I'm just trusting that not only is God is able, but he's gonna work that thing out.
Look,
However it is, I
and
don't know how it's gonna go. Yeah.
it's not even saying that I have not at some point or another shed a tear and say, Lord, why? Lord, what is going on? But God is able.
Mm-hmm.
You just,
Yep.
you just, you just gotta know it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. And I'm glad you even pointed out that just what you just said about, there even being times where I shed a tear because I want people to understand that as human beings, and God even recognizes this. He knows that we're human. He understands that when we're going through, that there's going to be some emotions that might come with that, whether it's shedding of tears, whether it's screaming in the air, punching our fist on the table, whatever that is. He's okay with that, and
Mm-hmm.
you need to be okay. It's okay for you to be allow that human expression to get it
Mm-hmm.
out. It's just not okay for you to stay stuck there.
That's right.
And so so that's when that mind shift has to be to the God is able.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now that I got this out my system,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm going to marinate on the fact that God is able. So now I can go into
Mm-hmm.
prayer. Now I can speak to God and tell him what's going on. And then as I'm speaking to him, and ultimately once I get it all out as to what I need for him, then now I can be open to hear, okay, God, where do I go from here? And it
Mm-hmm.
may be sometimes he'll give you specific blow by blow instruction. Sometimes it just may be, I just need you to just sit there and
Mm-hmm.
watch me work. you
Mm-hmm.
know, you
Mm-hmm.
you never know which way he's going to go in any particular situation, but as long as I know he's able, then I got nothing to fear. There's no
Mm-hmm.
need for me to be stressing. There's no need to me be worrying, losing sleep, not eating, or all the other toxic behaviors that we sometimes will
Mm-hmm.
embrace because we want to feel we it's almost like my pastor even just talked about this just this past Sunday. Like sometimes we'll do these things because it's almost like we think that if we bring ourselves down in the midst of these situations, that it means that we think it's important.
Mm-hmm.
That's a signal that we think it's really important that we care.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like God ain't told you to do that. He ain't told you
Okay.
to be depressed and miserable and moping around, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
signal that you care.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what that is about. And we don't want to be in that spirit where every time something doesn't go our way, that's immediately the mode that we go into, down in the dumps, depressed, and you know, no. Yeah, have your moment
Mm-hmm.
and turn it over to God because He's able,
Yeah.
and then let Him do the thing. Let Him do the thing. And I know it can be easier said than done, especially if
Yeah.
that's not something you've been used to doing. But over time, as you build that relationship with Him, and He reveals to you one instance after another. It's like it gets easier to do. It becomes a
Mm-hmm.
natural reaction to where I don't even trip anymore about stuff. It very
Mm-hmm.
little phases me anymore. Not because I don't care, but because I
Mm-hmm.
know who's in charge, who's running the
Yeah.
show. So that's awesome. That's awesome. So Karen, if you had an opportunity to sit across from the younger Karen, you think back all the experiences, challenges, things that you've gone through. If you could sit across from her and shed some words of wisdom, some insight, some things that you wish she knew earlier in life, that you believe that had she known, she probably would have been able to deal with adversities and challenges a little bit better. It wouldn't have been as rough on her because she had this insight, this wisdom. Or if there's just somebody that's going to have a chance to listen to this and they're stuck, they are feeling like you used to feel, um, unheard, unseen, they're searching. They don't even know what they're searching for. They're searching for something, acceptance, a belonging, if you will. What would be your message to young Karen or to some other individual that might be tuning in that's in that rut right now? What would you say to them that you believe is key steps, key mindset to have in mind to be able to process and work through those challenges?
Well, I would probably say that even though you feel as if no one else sees you, God always sees you. And sometimes it doesn't matter if people see you, as long as you know that the person that really matters, which is God, as long as you know that He sees you, He knows what you're doing, He knows how you feel. That's the only thing that should matter. Even though you want the love, you want the acknowledgments and things like that, um, from your loved ones, the people around you, just know that God is the one that's going to get you through every single obstacle that you could ever think of. Any and everything that you will ever go through in your life, you will find it in what they call the Holy Bible. Any and everything. God has brought folks through so many things, and the little bit of stuff that you're going through, it may seem real big and huge right now, but let God handle it. And when you look back on it, you're going to be like, did I just go off because of that? Did I just clown in the street because of that? So, yeah, just know that God loves you. That is the purest form of love that you could ever find. And I tell you, if I had known, I mean, I was in church and I believed in God, and I prayed, and God had even answered a prayer for me. And I was just like in awe when He answered that prayer. But if I had known that He loves me as much as I know that He loves me now, I probably, man, life probably would have been a whole lot different. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that's not to say to our listeners, that's not to say that you still wouldn't have gone through, or that you should wish that
Oh,
you never
yeah.
went through anything. Again, God makes no mistakes. All of the episodes of life that we go through, they were intended for us to go through.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
that the difference is if we're leaning on God and into His understanding, versus our own, a lot of those moments in time that we go through, maybe they wouldn't have been as crazy, or maybe that it wouldn't have lasted as long as it did, because we
Mm-hmm.
were trying to do it all on our own. We were trying to put on our own cape
Mm-hmm.
and be the superhero, to be the savior of the day. In some instances, be God, play God, instead of
Mm-hmm.
letting Him do it. We would have still gone through it, but
Yeah.
it would have been a much, maybe a little bit of smoother ride through the storm. It wouldn't have been as chaotic or crazy as perhaps we might have allowed it to become, because we were not operating in obedience, and or we were not operating in truly having faith and trusting that even if we don't understand it. One of my mentors, she just posted shared a story recently, just today actually, about a major life decision that she made years ago. And the thing that stands out, that she spoke about, was the importance of being obedient to God, even if I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you know who it's coming from,
Mm-hmm.
if I know that God is behind it, and I even incorporate this again in my prayer every day, is that I get that I'm not going to always understand what you're doing, God. That it's sometimes you do stuff, it don't make sense to me. And I'm trying to understand, why would you ask me to do that, or why would you want me to go this way? That doesn't logically make sense. But that's me trying to assess God's
Mm-hmm.
plan, God's works, based upon worldly understanding. You
Mm-hmm.
know, His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. So yeah, God's gonna hit you with stuff more times than not that you would have never thought to do it like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never thought that this person over here was supposed to be the person that I would connect with. Because what about all these people? They got influence, they got status, they got. I didn't tell you to go there. I told you to go to this person over here that appears to be random to you, but I've
Mm-hmm.
specifically set them apart. They're going to be the one that bless you. I know what you think
Mm-hmm.
that these other folks over here going to do. It's the one over here. Or it's this street I need you to go down. I know that street is faster. I need you to go down that way. That's just
Mm-hmm.
how God orchestrates things, and He does it so flawlessly, so perfectly. We just have to embrace that, believe in it, hold fast to it, and do exactly what He's asking of us to do. Trust the process. His process is always going to be perfect, and so
And
yeah, go ahead.
and one thing that I realize now in my walk, and I correct it now, but God is always speaking to us, right? He's always showing us a way out.
Mm-hmm.
He's always answering prayers. He's always doing something. He's always telling us, no, don't do
Mm-hmm.
that. Okay, we'll go there. He's always doing that. But we sometimes look at it and like, oh, I'm gonna give you this real quick example, and then I'm done. A couple of weeks ago, I was getting myself ready to go to work, and something just dumped into my spirit, and it just said, "Take your other computer to work today." And I went to go get it, and I was like, no, I'm not taking that computer to work. I already got a computer at work. I do not need two computers at work. I went to work. Do you know when I got to work, that computer at work no longer works?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to leave my job and go home to get my other computer and take it with me. And you should have seen me. Lord, Father, you told me to take the other computer to work. And I was like, please forgive me for not being obedient, because
Mm-hmm.
why would that have just dropped down in my
Right.
spirit like that? You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, just please forgive me for being disobedient, because that was outright. I said, I am not taking that computer to work. I do not need another computer at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I was specifically told, take that computer with you, take your other computer with you to work today. And I promise you, that computer still to this day doesn't work.
Wow. Yeah.
So that
That's
computer that I took to work that day is now the computer that I use at work.
that is awesome.
You
But
got to
that's how
know
God
it.
does. You got to know.
Yep, you got to pay
Mm-hmm.
attention. So now I'm on my P's and Q's. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what? Hold on, what? Oh, okay,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
paying
it's
attention.
he's always giving us cues. He's always working. Even when we're not thinking about things, like I said, you just never know whether it's something as simple as take this computer or go a different route today than you normally go. You're
Mm-hmm.
not understanding why you're being led to do that, but you gotta pay attention to those things. 'Cause he might
Yep.
be keeping you from an accident,
Yep.
keeping you from some other pitfall or landmine that is awaiting you that you can't see, but he
Mm-hmm.
can, and
Yep.
he's trying to work that thing out. And that's why when you
Mm-hmm.
even what you just said earlier about the importance of about God saying no.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing now. I tell people all the time. I thank God more for the no's than I do the yeses.
Yep.
I didn't always do that because I felt like you was withholding something from me. You keep keeping something from me.
Mm-hmm.
No. Thank you for that no. I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted that. I really wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do this. I thought it seemed like it was you said no. Okay. I'm gonna trust that because I've had moments and times I can tell you numerous situations where God told me no and I felt some kind of way at first. Now I
Mm-hmm.
fast forward to the day and I think back to that, like, oh, I'm so glad you told me no on that. I had no idea, but he
Yep.
did, which
Mm-hmm.
is why we gotta trust. We gotta follow his lead because he ain't just telling us no just to be again denying us of stuff. He's not trying
Mm-hmm.
to keep us away from things that are going to be good for us. But he
Mm-hmm.
understands that sometimes it could be a literal pitfall or landmine. sometimes it just might be a situation where I'm telling you no because it would require you to settle.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even that it's a horrible thing. It's just not good enough for you because I got something better
Mm-hmm.
for you. So I'm saying
Yeah.
no because I don't want you to take low when I got something. You just be a little bit patient. Let
Mm-hmm.
me play this thing out. You're going to thank me later. It's going to be
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
better than this little bit that you getting ready to just grab hold to because it looks shiny and pretty and it's attractive to you. It's
Mm-hmm.
because that's not always what it's going to be for you. So good stuff. Good stuff.
Yep.
So Karen, it has been a absolute pleasure talking with you, hearing more about your story, getting another layer of who you are. I thank you so much for taking time out and sharing as you have. I know I've been blessed. I know my listeners are going to be blessed as well by the sharing of your story. Right on time messaging. Definitely drop some nuggets of wisdom that we can all take on to and apply right now immediately to our respective lives. But before I let you go, as
Mm-hmm.
is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, we want to take an opportunity to love on you, to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to let you know that you are being seen and heard. And so,
Okay.
with that said, if you got some news, some upcoming things, whether something going on now or coming down the pipe, personal or professionally, that you would like to share with us, please share that with us so we can, again, not only celebrate and acknowledge that, but find out how we can get connected to it and learn more about it. So, what we got going on that we need to know
Well,
about?
let
What's
me tell
happening?
you what we got going on. So, I am the owner of the Journey Christian Bookstore located in Richmond, Kentucky. And we just happen to be the only Christian bookstore in Richmond and the surrounding counties. So we are doing our very best to service this community, right? And I'm loving every minute of it. I really am. So, what we have in conjunction with or connected to the Christian bookstore is our upcoming podcast called The Inspired Author. And I am so excited about that. It is a podcast geared towards indie or independent authors. I myself am an independent author, and I know how hard it is to, get your books in stores and get people to, hear about your book and get your material out there and things like that. So our podcast is going to feature indie authors, and I am so excited about it. We are planning to launch in September at the what is the word I'm looking for? At the advice of a newfound friend. Uh, that told me that it's a good idea to get at least 20 episodes under your belt first. So that is why it is going to take us a little time. We are going to just take our time and get these episodes up and put together and everything. And we are going to hit the floor running. And I'm
Awesome.
excited about it. I am excited.
I
And
am.
no one but ta-da, you will be one of our special guests.
Well, I
And
am
I'm
looking forward to
excited
that.
about that. Yes, very excited.
Absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to that. You were gracious enough to actually purchase my book,
Yes.
and I'm excited to, of course, not only be on your podcast, but to just hear what you think about the book. And like I said, having a Christian bookstore is an awesome thing that you're doing. I pray nothing but blessings over that great work that you're doing and your upcoming podcast. And again, this is not an accident. This is just not a random. I'm just starting a business move. This is a divine assignment from God, and God is just using you, tapping into your gifts and talents and skill sets, and allowing you to be a blessing to the masses. And I'm excited for you, and just looking forward to just great works, more and more and more great works coming out from up under you. And and you just following God's lead and just being a blessing to so many people. So that is great stuff. I'm excited, looking forward to that. If people want to connect with your like whether it's find out about information about your bookstore, whether they want to get books from you, or just kind of keep track with you in general, like making sure that they're reminded when the podcast officially launches and all that good stuff. What's the best way for people to keep up with you and or connect with your products and services that you
So,
have?
so anything about the Journey Christian Bookstore you can find on Facebook, and it's called. I don't know if it's the Journey Christian Bookstore or Journey Christian Bookstore, but we do have two. One is the group page, and the other is the professional page. Don't ask me how that happened, but it did, and, and it's working for us, right? But yeah, Journey Christian Bookstore. You'll see our little logo with the it's gold and burgundy, so has a cross and a road on it. So you'll see it. And I think, anything, our website is on there, and we mention the podcast on it. Anything about the podcast or the bookstore, what have you, you're gonna find there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, to my viewers, there you have it. You need to connect with Karen. She's doing some awesome, wonderful things. Our indie authors, specifically our indie Christian authors, you need
Yes.
to link up with her and find out how you can get your stuff out there, and and or to purchase some of her materials that she has in her store, that you can be a benefit for you. So again, let's support her, let's rally around her, and most importantly, let's keep her lifted up in prayer, because she's doing an awesome work, and she's operating within the purpose that God has intended for her to do. He didn't have her go through all of the storms and challenges, things that she shared, and even the stuff that she didn't get around to sharing. That was all to align her up with the works that she's doing right now. So we want to definitely celebrate that and acknowledge it. And again, we just claiming victories in advance right now, that it's all going to be it's going to all work out for your good and for the good of others that God has specifically designed for you to come alongside and to pour into. So great stuff, great stuff. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our podcast today, the content, the sharing of our stories, the transparency, the vulnerability that's been put on display today, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We want to empower, we want to uplift, we want to encourage, using, again, relatable, everyday stuff. We all go through things. We all have our storms. We all have our challenges. You're not alone in that. But we're also reminding you that we have a God who loves us unconditionally. And all he wants you to do is to lean into him, to rely upon him, to be in relationship with him, and just watch the work that he does in your life. Watch the ways that he makes. Watch the healing, the forgiveness, the that feeling of you feeling like you're by yourself in it all. He's going to eliminate all of that. He's going to let you know that you're worthy, that you're important, that you're meaningful, that you have purpose in life. All of those things, he can do it like no other. And if you don't currently have a relationship with God, today is a mighty fine day for you to make that decision. I know I can attest to this, and I know Karen can say the same. It'll be the best decision that you ever make in your life. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much again for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You embrace those storms, because they're not there to harm you. They're not there to hurt you. These are opportunities for you to grow, for you to develop, for you to become a better version of yourself. But more importantly, it's an opportunity for you to draw nearer and dearer and closer in your relationship with God. He uses moments like this to just remind you that he is there for you all times, not just the good times, but also in those moments of struggle. You are not alone. He is with you all the way, and he loves you unconditionally and wants nothing but the best for you. So until next time, you take care of yourselves. I look forward to seeing you again on our next show. Have a great rest of your day.